powerful thing, right? I run my own business, so there's a lot of rejection. You knock on a lot of doors, and it's the old Nelson Mandela saying, right? I don't win or lose, I win or learn, right? You reframe it. What did I just take from that? What was great about that? It's like going back earlier in our conversation. Think about your differences as strengths. Think about the things that didn't go right as strengths, because the game's not over yet, right? Too many of us stop the game or take a hit, a failure, and think the game's over. But actually, you're not even through, the first quarter of the game, right? And the scoreline might be, at the moment, it might be you're down by 10. But if if you had the magic and the ability to fast forward to the end of the game, you might see you're like Michael Jordan. You've won the game by 100 points. And you needed the Disney style sort of 10 points behind at the end of the first quarter to make the dramatic end shot, right? So, you just stopped the game at the wrong time. So think of it, reframe it, think again.
You're listening to the First Class Life Show, hosted by Lindsey Vertner, a holistic personal development show for high-achieving leaders who desire to maximize their impact while creating a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. So grab a drink, grab your notebook, and let's get started. Hey, First Class family. Welcome back to another episode of the First Class Life Show. I am your fabulous host, Lindsey Vertner, and today we have the handsome Faris Aranki with us. And listen, we're going to dive into all kinds of things. But first, let me thank you for showing up yet again, because I know you could be doing anything in the world right now, but you are here with us for this hour, and we truly appreciate it. And you are out there just killing it, maximizing your impact, creating your first class life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. So I know that you don't have time to waste. Now, before we jump into this conversation, make sure you do a few things for me, okay? Hit the subscribe button, comment, like, love, share, do all the things. Take your pen and paper, write down the good nuggets and insights you're getting from this show, and share them on social media, okay? Because believe it or not everyone knows about this show, and we got good stuff, okay? So sharing is caring. Meanwhile, let's get into this conversation. Welcome, Faris. How are you?
I'm very good, Lindsey. If you're the fabulous host, that makes me the fabulous guest. And I'm pleased to be here with you and all your watchers, listeners, just everyone out there.
Yes. Faris, you are officially a part of the First Class family now. So welcome. Now, I want you to tell us, who is Faris Aranki really? Give us the good tea, give us the juice. Who are you?
Yeah, well, everybody, settle into your seats, shuffle a little closer. Light the fire. Let me tell you a story about Faris Aranki. In Southeast London, born and raised. No, let's travel back, right? Just to set the scene, who am I? I am the CEO and founder of a strategic consulting firm where we help companies with emotional intelligence, but more about that later. How did I become this person? So, I am speaking today from London, England, where I was born and raised. And I spent my first sort of school years growing, being very awkward teenager, a very awkward child and stuff, getting me to a point that I think for me, in many ways, I feel my journey started. But actually, hey, your childhood years are your journey starting. But what do I mean by that? I studied economics and mathematics, and I became a teacher initially. So my journey became after university, studying two very quite analytical subjects, I went on to teach high school. I didn't just teach high school, I taught high school around the world. So I taught in random countries like El Salvador in Central America. I taught in Nepal in South Asia. I taught in Palestine in the Middle East. And then I taught in Northeast London, and that was by far and away the toughest. Because I was teaching in a school where kids would turn up regularly with knives, and they'd just tell you as a teacher to politely to leave them alone. You can imagine the kind of words they used. I had 5 glorious years as a school teacher, and then that's when I decided I should try my hand at the business world. So I made a complete switch and ended up joining an energy company here in the UK, and ended up starting on the telephones, working for them, selling energy products, and then working my way into the boardroom as a strategy guy. And that's when I discovered I loved strategy. I loved solving complex problems, helping people, and then became the next chapter of my life. I became a strategy consultant, and I spent 12 years traveling the globe, working for a whole host of different companies of different sizes, solving their most difficult problems. But 3 years ago, I realized that wasn't enough. I wasn't getting enough satisfaction from that. I felt there was something missing. And so I started my own company, which was not just to develop strategy, but actually to help people understand and buy into strategies and get teams working better together. And that, for me, made much more of an impact to individuals and businesses. And something I really enjoyed. So I started 3 years ago. For those of you who can do maths, like me, like I don't do maths, you probably worked out that 6 months before COVID hit. So you can imagine the first year of my business was terrible. Absolutely terrible. I had no work because of COVID. But still, I didn't let that beat me down. I managed to grow the business today so that I've got a team. I've got like clients all around the world, and I still enjoy the work that I do. So there you go. I'll take a break. Lindsey, does that tell you a little bit about me?
Listen. I heard you went from point A to point B to point C, and all that I keep hearing is the power of the pivot, which I know that we are going to get deeper into. But I also heard you mention you had an awkward childhood and an awkward teenage years. And so I want us to dive into that just a little bit more before we dive into the rest, because I know that those years are very formative as who we become as leaders. And so what was that journey like, feeling like you were awkward? Did you have people telling you were awkward, or you just felt out of place, or what did that look like for you specifically?
Such a great question. One you can forget. You know, I'm in my early 40s now, and my school days seem a while ago. But do you know what? Just last week I was doing a podcast with school children. They were the interviewers. So a class of 30 students, all age 13. And the first question they asked me was, you know, it wasn't questions that you asked me. It was, did you get bullied? What did you study? Do you like getting up in the morning? You know, stuff that a 13-year-old really cares about. So it really made me remember. So yeah, what was my childhood was in Southeast London. What made it, the challenges, and everyone has challenges when they're a child, but, you know, I was shy, awkward. I was a lot bigger in size, but also my family, my parents are Palestinian, and they'd moved to the UK. So we were a bit different. We had, in the early 80s, we were just doing all Arabic-y things. I only ate Arabic food. I'd speak Arabic at home. And this was different to the other kids. So they're, simple things. They'd say, what's in your sandwich today? And I'd say things like falafel and hummus, which nowadays we all eat. But back in the 80s, people were like, oh, that's weird. You're weird. Anything that's different, children will pick up on and point it out. And so it was these awkwardness things that made it just a little bit more difficult to blend in at times. And then, when you have other challenges of growing up and getting used to your body and getting used to, these things weigh on your mind and you find it difficult. So certainly if you met me back then, I was a lot shyer, a lot more awkward and unsure of my place in the world, quite different to the kind of person that you see in front of you today.
And so you said you moved to London at what age?
So my parents moved. My parents moved before I was born, but still they had heavy traditions and influence from the culture that they'd grown up in.
Got it. Because you were born and raised in London.
Yeah.
So did you have a battle of identities, like embracing your Palestinian side versus like your London British side?
Oh yeah, completely. So it's kind of like two different people. At home you speak one language, you operate in one way, and then you go and hang out with your sort of English friends, your British friends, and it's a different way of talking, a different simple things that you just take for granted. So really simple, like let's take like PG-13 films you'd have in the US. We have them. My dad was very strict. He'd always followed the rules. So there's no way you could see the film like that if you were under 13. All right. Even whereas all my school friends were like seeing these. So simple things like that where cultures just clash. And you'd say, well, I'd love to join you this Saturday to the cinema to watch this movie. But my dad says no, right? Because that's his tradition. That's his culture. And, you just, lots of these little things add up. So you feel like in some ways that you're juggling two different kind of societal ways of going about life.
Mm-hmm. Are you loving the First Class Life Show? Then join our private Patreon community. Not only will you help to support our ability to provide you with great content, but you can also get exclusive perks like bonus videos and resources, discounts, episode transcripts, and more. So what are you waiting for? Join today at patreon.com/firstclasslife. Again, that's Patreon, patreon.com/firstclasslife. So how did you start to overcome, these two dichotomies of your culture that you were being raised in?
I think a natural thing that you do is you resist initially, and you worry about the differences rather than celebrating the differences and the strengths that they bring. So I'm incredibly, in hindsight, but now I'm incredibly grateful for the fantastic warmth and familial sense and all the strengths of that culture. Instead of pointing out it's different from A and B, it always made me laugh. Whenever you'd invite friends around, this is like my mum would have made such amazing Arabic cuisine, whole lamb, falafel, all these salads. And then your English friends would come around and my mum would say to them, "Oh, I'll make you a cheese sandwich because that's what you English people like." All their eyes going, "No, actually, I quite like the look of all that food of yours." So actually these are the amazing things, right? The strengths of different cultures is you shouldn't hide behind them and say, "Oh, these are you won't like these." We should say, "Hey, let me tell you more about it."
Yeah, I love that, because oftentimes we want to hide our differences, not realizing that those differences are what make us unique and what make us flavorful and colorful and really can have the opportunity to bring us together, because it's like we weren't made to all be purple crowns. Like if we think about a box of crowns, this just popped into my head, but there are all different colors of crowns and they all live cohesively in this one box, especially if you got the good box that was it 156 crowns? And even then, there might be 5 different shades of purple and 5 different shades of blue, but they all are these different colors, from the whitest crown to the blackest crown to all in between. And they all work together to make this beautiful picture. You don't just get a box that's full of green crowns or full of red crowns or things like that. So I think that's very important that we learn to embrace our differences and know that they're part of who we are for a reason. And it really is good to celebrate rather than, hide and dismiss them.
Completely. And I think the add-on to that is appreciate other people's differences. Go out and meet people who are different to you, and you'll appreciate the world a lot more. That's one of the reasons I went off and lived in random countries around the world, because I didn't know what I didn't know. And, I thought, while this will be challenging, I'm going to get so much from it. And I did, and I love it.
Yeah. Oh, look, we're about to touch on that. But before I ask you that question, I want to ask you, what advice would you give to the listeners out there that may be struggling with identity or embracing their difference because they're worried that they might be judged for it, or, stereotyped or discriminated or just rejected for their differences? What advice would you share?
I just, every weakness is a strength. So lean into things. Go and talk to your best friend. Go and talk to those around you about what they like about you. What makes you you. And write them down, right? Because we often dismiss them when somebody says, yeah. Write them down. Look at them in the cold light of day. Yeah, and start celebrating. These are the reasons that people, you bring joy to other people's lives. So the sooner you can get comfortable with that, it's really powerful. I have an actor friend who told me when he was a young guy trying to break into acting, and he went to acting classes, he had to spend 2 days once looking at his own picture in the mirror, because the guy said, if you're going to be famous, you need to be comfortable with every wart, every wrinkle, every blemish on your face, because that's what makes you perfect and you, right? So it's the same exercise. Go and find out the great stuff about you and get really comfortable with it, because it is great.
That's good, especially because when you become a celebrity, you are under the eye of the needle. That's not the right phrase. You're like under a magnifying glass, right? And
Yeah.
people can be brutal, especially with the ease of access with the internet and everything. And so you have to really have a strong skin, not that it still doesn't hurt, but a strong skin to withstand the bombards of criticism that you're going to get. Some of it good, but a lot of it bad just as well. And know that that doesn't matter. Like, stand in who you are, be strong in that. So, well, thank you. Thank you. So you talked about traveling to these different places, and, you started off as a teacher, and that's what first started your travels, correct?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that journey. Were you nervous to travel to and live in other countries, or what did that look like for you?
Well, as a kid, I had been on family holidays, so it's not like I'd never left the UK. But when I was 17, I went and decided to go and join an NGO, a charity, and I ended up in Nepal in a little village teaching English. Now, in terms of culture clash and shock, that was probably the biggest and probably the most impactful year of my life. Right. So if you can imagine somebody who's grown up in a lovely place, in a middle class home in the UK, going and living at 3,000 meters in a small village with no electricity, one tap for all the villagers, very basic style of life, and trying to teach them English. It was unbelievable. Yeah, but yeah, full of a lot of challenges, which in hindsight I can laugh about, but at the time we're like, oh my god. But yeah, really, really went a long way to shaping who I am today.
What was the biggest thing you had to overcome in that moment?
When you start, could have been language. The fact that most people in the village didn't speak a word of English, so we had to learn Nepali. I learned Nepali. Could be the fact that the diet. We ate the same food every day, twice a day for a year. So I just ate rice and lentils at 7 a.m. in the morning, 7 p.m. at night. Could be the fact there was no electricity. So, things you get very used to. Could be the fact it was very cold. Living at 3,000 meters is very, very cold. Or the fact that we got ill a lot because the hygiene, the cuisine, you got a lot of bacterial dysentery, a lot of giardia, and we were told to just self-treat and get on with it. So throw all that together, it was a hell of a year. But I loved it.
Bet. Oh, goodness. And it makes me think of like how often we can take things that are so common to us for granted. So in your case, like, what do you feel was probably the biggest thing that you took for granted that really brought back your appreciation? Like, man, I'm grateful that I have this available to me, or that I have access, whatever that was.
Yeah. So despite all those challenges, so to me, it was really uncomfortable. They were some of the happiest people I've ever met in my life. Although 99% of them would never leave the village, would never be more than a farmer. They would I never saw them unhappy. They were always just what they had in life. They'd smile, they'd share with you. They were very generous. All the kids would turn up to school for every day and then go and work on the fields and never moan about it. Now, I'm not saying that's a good life, but what just amazed me was their resilience and their happiness of what they had. And they weren't like, I just need a bigger TV. I just need they were like, we don't even have those things. So we're not, they don't bother us. So it really changed my perspective on where happiness comes from and what drives you as a person, and that still sticks in my head today. And also the other thing that it really was going back to what we said earlier about the differences. It changed partly through that, but it changed how I looked at things. You go through life assuming your way of looking at things is the right way, but actually there's a million different ways to look at the same thing in a completely different way. And until somebody shows that to you, you don't appreciate it and you don't start adapting your behaviors.
Yeah, that is so true, because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know that there are 50 ways to get to that same point, and your one way is not the only way until you are exposed to more. And so you mentioned about it really changed your perspective on where happiness comes from and how that's derived. And so what is that perspective now?
So definitely it's don't mourn what you don't have, celebrate what you do have. Okay, so too many of us are like, we spend our time going, oh, if only I had an increased salary. Oh, damn it, I missed out on this. Or why does that person have that? Instead of looking back and going, do you know what? I've got all this great stuff in my life, right? And that far outweighs the one thing I don't have, or and it's so easy to get lost and focused on that one other thing that you think will make your life happier, rather than looking at all the piles of great things that you've accumulated. And they don't have to be physical things. And going, do you know what? This is great. I've done pretty good. I'm very happy with what I got. Anything else will be a bonus.
Yeah.
Hey, I know it can be exhausting blazing the trail and creating a legacy. And you're at the point in your life where you desire peace and rest. You want to enjoy both the physical freedom and financial freedom to live life on your terms. You understand the importance of prioritizing your self-care. And you know that you're worthy of transformational experiences surrounded by other high-achieving, goal-oriented women just like you. That's why you deserve to be treated like VIP at the First Class Life Luxury Self-Care Retreat for Women. You deserve to show up and just be you. Away from the titles and roles that keep you busy from day to day. You deserve the luxury to fully unplug. It's time for you to embrace your first class life. Visit firstclassliferetreats.com to secure your VIP spot today, because you deserve it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And so from Nepal, then you went just all over the place, correct?
I went and spent a few years in El Salvador, so that's just down near Mexico. Totally random couple of years working there. That was a different challenge. So I was working in the British school out there. So the kind of students their parents were very rich. And so different challenges of motivating the kids. But also as a country, El Salvador, for those who don't know, has the highest murder rate in the world. So it's a very difficult, very challenging country full of lots of sort of socioeconomic problems. But I loved it. I love the Latin culture. It was, again, a completely different challenge and a completely different couple of years, but really, really enjoyable for me.
So what took you from teaching to then, you said, energy cells?
Yeah. So I said I came back to teaching. I was working in London, and I realized it was a tough school, and I realized teaching wasn't my vocation. When I talked to myself honestly, I'd used it as a vehicle, as a way to see the world. While I enjoyed teaching, it wasn't something I imagined I would be doing for the next 30, 40 years of my life. So I made the tough but the right decision for me. I said, look, let's go explore other things. You always know that you can come back to teaching because you've done it now. You've got So I thought, okay, let's try. But saying that and making it happen are two different things, as I discovered. So, I naively, when I decided to pivot, I remember opening, the internet, finding some jobs I thought I could do, like in business, writing to them and never hearing from them. And then eventually I got one letter back from a guy saying, I don't know why the hell you applied for my job. You're a teacher. You've got no transferable skills. Why have you applied for this job as an analyst or a manager in a business? And it really hit me, like that's how I was viewed, but completely wrong. That's how people pigeonhole. But I realized it would be a lot harder to get into business than naively just thinking I could just move across. So that's why I ended up starting at the bottom. I found a company that were taking entry-level jobs, this energy company, and I just joined them on the telephones, right? And I backed myself. I said, look, I've got these skills. I'll show them, and I'll work my way up through this organization.
So what did that do to your confidence to not hear back and then have this person be like, look, you don't got nothing? What did that do?
I mean, it makes you really self-doubt. It makes you think, hang on a minute, have I been living a lie? But, you've got to have a lot of self-belief, and you've got to remind yourself. And I often, what that taught me was repackage how you sell yourself, repackage, think about the skills. Instead of walking into a room and saying, I used to be a teacher, I say, hey, I know how to communicate to rooms of 30 people to get them all excited, energized, and understanding what I'm talking about, and sometimes even give me a standing ovation. How would that work in your business? They go, yeah, great. Where have you done this? I said, oh, by the way, that was when I was teaching, right? But that's the same things that you just said you really want in your company. And they're like, oh yeah, when you put it that way, that makes a lot of sense, right? And I said, yeah, I do that for 8 hours a day. So, in the boardroom, you have to do that for an hour. That's easy.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like it was a shift in your mindset, and that's why it's so important for us to understand as leaders how crucial our mindset is to everything. Just that shift in your perspective changed the words that you were saying on these applications. And so what advice would you give as far as to someone that's listening right now that may be kind of struggling with that self-doubt because they have been rejected?
Yeah. So like you said, mindset reframing is a powerful thing, right? I run my own business. So there's a lot of rejection. You knock on a lot of doors, and it's the old Nelson Mandela saying, right? I don't win or lose. I win or learn, right? Reframe it. What did I just take from that? What was great about that? It's like going back earlier in our conversation. Think about your differences as strengths. Think about the things that didn't go right as strengths, because the game's not over yet, right? Too many of us stop the game or take a hit, a failure, and think the game's over. But actually, you're not even through, the first quarter of the game, right? And the scoreline might be, at the moment, it might be you're down by 10. But if if you had the magic and the ability to fast forward to the end of the game, you might see you're like Michael Jordan. You've won the game by 100 points. And you needed the Disney style sort of 10 points behind at the end of the first quarter to make the dramatic end shot, right? So, you just stopped the game at the wrong time. So think of it, reframe it, think again.
Reframe it, think again. Hopefully First Class Family is picking up what Faris is putting down, okay?
My sports analogy is all over the place because, we play different sports here in the UK, but I'm trying to...
No, that was good. That was good. So you went from teaching to sales. You were able to repackage your skills because a lot of times we like to pigeonhole ourselves into certain titles or positions because we think like, oh, I don't really love what I'm doing, but how can I do what I want to do? I don't have those skills. And then just reframing it, repackaging it, like you said. So what other tips would you give as far as how to reframe or repackage the skills that you have into something that seems completely opposite?
Yeah, so, make the most of every situation, right? So when I moved over to the sales position on the phones, a lot of my friends who are at the similar stage of life, they were much further on in their careers. They had high, and they would say to me, aren't you, don't you feel ashamed to be working on the phones for low wage and that sort of thing? And I'd be like, no, it's great, man. I'm getting paid. I get paid to chat to people, right? But equally, I was taking that as do you know what? I'm going to get so much out of this. I'm learning all the real problems with this company because people don't ring you up because they're happy, right? They ring you up when they're mad, man. And when they're mad, they tell you about, man, this isn't working, right? Which often higher up people in a company just lose touch with. They don't hear it day to day. So actually, I was like, this is a superpower. They're giving me the gift of all the things that are wrong with this company. So I can walk in to senior people and go, I know how to fix and improve this company. So, I was like, damn, man, this is like a crash course. This is like an MBA in this company. So within a few months listening, it wasn't long. It was, within 6 months I was managing that team. And then I moved on into more sort of analytical and strategic roles because I had that experience when I'd say, wait, that's not going to work, or this will work, or how about we try this? So, flip it on its head, draw strength from it, and keep asking questions, really. That's what I learned from that time of my career.
Yes. So then you went from teaching to being in sales on the phones, talking with customers, to starting your own business. What was that journey like? Were you scared? Were you nervous? Because, a lot of times when we're comfortable in, that consistent paycheck, that consistent salary, we have structure from our employer, and we don't know what's going to happen with this thing that started in our brains, like, ooh, maybe I should start a business. A lot of time that fear of the unknown will hold us back, or, just secret fears of failure or fear of not being good enough. things like that. So what was your specific journey in your decision to start a business?
So my decision, I was at a company, I was in a consulting firm, and I had a coach that was given to me by the company. And she said to me, the very first question she asked me was, do you enjoy your job? And I answered something like, yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's all right. And she went, oh, that doesn't sound good. And what I came to realize when talking to her at depth was I was bored by the work, but I really liked the people I was working with. And for me, that seemed enough at the time. But as I realized, I still had another 30 years of working, right? And do I want to be bored for the next 30 years, even if I like the people? And the people might come and go, right? So that it's not a strong enough emotion to stick, to kind of tread water. So then once I'd realized that, and that I wanted more out of life and more out of the next stage of my career, then I had to work out what the hell I wanted to do. So that was the whole process, right? So she gave me some techniques to work that out. But then you're right. Then having that, still you got to make the leap. You've got to make the leap to leave the security of a regular paycheck, of a nice environment, friends. That's tough, right? But initially when I did it, I said, damn it, if I don't do it now, I'm not going to do it, right? I've already identified I'm bored. And what's the worst that can happen? I always ask myself, what's the worst that can happen? I was like, if it all goes wrong, you can come back. They like you, they'll take you, one of your other previous employers. But what I didn't say to myself, Lindsey, which, is what's the worst could happen? Could be even worse. A pandemic could happen, because I set up my business 6 months before. So actually I had something even worse than that, which was a pandemic. So I couldn't go back to previous companies. And that was a tough time, right? No work. I won't lie to you. But hey, that's, as I said before, you draw something from every challenge. And the fact that me and the company got through that, and we're much stronger for it.
So I know, like, when the pandemic hit, that caused a big rise in anxiety and depression and all of those things, because a lot of people just felt hopeless apart from the illness, but because they were also losing their jobs, losing contracts and things like that. So for you, what did you find was that factor that allowed you to push through and succeed during the pandemic?
So it's really linked to our previous conversation about enjoying what you've already got, not what you're missing out on, right? When I set up the company, and I'm a strategist, I'm a thinker, so I mapped out the worst case scenario for the business, which was in my first year, we'd earn no money. And I said, can I handle that? Yes, I can. I had enough cash reserves. I had enough thing. If that happened, I didn't want that to happen, but that's the worst case. You've got to prepare for the worst case. Now, I was fortunate enough to have 6 months of work. So I earned some money in that 6 months. Then I had 6 months of no work. That's what the pandemic did. I couldn't buy a piece of work. And so part of me during that second 6 months was like, damn, maybe I should give up on this. Maybe. And then I said, hang on a minute. You said to yourself at the start of the year, your worst case scenario is no money. You've already earned money. So you're already ahead of your worst case, right? So celebrate what you've achieved, not what you're missing out on. And I was like, actually, you're right. This has been a successful year. I've avoided my worst case scenario, right? Let's use this 6 months, even if I'm not getting money through the door, to prepare for next year and how I can beat this year's target, how I can beat my worst case scenario in that year. So actually, it was that kind of thing, along with the fact that everyone else was going through it. And, I didn't necessarily have that much of a choice. My dad would say to me, ring up your old company. I said, they're not going to take me back. They've just sacked a whole bunch of their own employees. There's no way. So it was partly you had to, but equally, it was very comforting to look and say, I've done better than I thought I would do. So yeah, let's celebrate that.
Looking for amazing products to help boost your first-class lifestyle? Then head over to firstclasslifeshop.com, where you can treat yourself to personal development books and workbooks, lifestyle affirmation cards, adult coloring books, mugs, notebooks, hoodies, t-shirts, leggings, and more. All products were designed to help you master your mindset, walk in your purpose, and live your first-class life, because you deserve it. So treat yourself today at firstclasslifeshop.com. Again, that's firstclasslifeshop.com.
Yeah, you just tied all of those pieces together. You celebrated what you did have. You figured out, like, I've already hit the worst case scenario, and actually I beat it because you said it was making no money, but you had already made some money. So again, like shifting your focus and shifting your thoughts on what it is that you decide to focus on. Because, I always say where your focus goes, your energy flows. And so the things that you focus on, you attract more of into your life. So rather than focusing on, I'm not making any money right now, I'm going to focus on that I've already made money in this business, which means I've already passed my worst case scenario, which means let me focus on how I can prep myself for the money that will return eventually. I might not know when or how, but I know that I want to make sure that I'm prepared to receive that when the time is right.
Definitely. And I have a little saying that I say to myself, a little trick that I use when times are tough. Do you know the story of Aladdin and the genie in the lamp?
Mm-hmm.
I always say to myself, imagine you've got a genie, but he's only got one wish, right? When times are tough, I say to myself, would you use your genie right now and use that one wish? If the answer is no, it can't be that bad, right? If you're not willing to use your genie then, it can't be that bad because you've had tougher times. I'm like, great, okay. I'm not getting the genie out. Things are okay.
And that's a good thing to like shift you into action, because then you start thinking, okay, well, what do I need to do to change my situation? If I don't need the genie for this, for something that's completely out of my control, what actions do I need to take? What do I need to focus on? How do I need to strategize? What tools or resources do I need to implement so that I can start to take action to change the situation, achieve what it is that is my goal?
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. Okay, so I have another question for you.
Okay.
We've been talking about, just your journey through your different professions and things like that. So as I said earlier, the power of the pivot is what popped into my head when you were sharing those. And I know that the fear of the unknown can be a big issue for a lot of people that holds them back from chasing after their dreams or their goals, or even just applying for a new position in a job that they won't be bored at or that they like. And so the power of the pivot, when you hear that phrase, what do you think of, and what advice or suggestions would you share as far as how to embrace the power of the pivot?
Okay, well, I mean, pivots are amazing, all right? And they're going to feel really uncomfortable. That's why most of us don't do them. It's like any new skill, any new thing, it's going to feel really uncomfortable. So my top tip is prepare yourself for the pivot, but with mini pivots, right? Mini disruptions in your life, right? The more you get used to mini pivots, you can then build up. It's like going to the gym. You don't start with the heaviest weights. You start with like the light 1 pound ones, and then you work up to the second pound. So what do I mean by that, right? Pivot stupid things in your life. I do this all the time, right? If you're right-handed and you brush your teeth with your right hand, spend a week brushing it with your left hand, right? It's a mini pivot. It's stupid. But your brain goes, oh, this feels really weird, but then it gets used to the weirdness, right? Then next week, switch something else in your life that you do. Like say you always go the same route to work, right? Change it. Right? Take a different route, right? Throw your brain a little bit. It's a mini pivot. You can go back to the old way after a week, right? Just the more of these that you throw into your life, when a big pivot comes along, it won't seem like a big pivot. You'll be like, I've done stupid stuff to build up to this. This is fine, right? So, set yourself mini pivots, and a big pivot will seem a lot easier when it comes.
Yes, I love that, because then it's so funny just thinking about it. I'm already thinking about, ooh, I know I just brushed my teeth, but now I want to go brush my teeth again with the other hand.
Yeah, that message was sponsored by the dentists of the US.
Keeping your smile great all the time.
Right. Okay, and after this, no.
Right. Colgate, you want to sponsor this episode? Yes, like that is so good. Just doing little pivots you can control. They might seem, unnecessary or kind of mindless or, like you said, stupid, but really it makes life fun. It makes those changes, those pivots, those times fun. It makes it a game. And so then, like you said, when the big ones do arise, they don't seem as mountainous. They seem like a little hill because you've been hopping hills and mounds all along that you created, and you've made it fun for your life and added, a little bit of a flavor, a little bit of color.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Mr. Faris, I think that this would be a great time to take a pause and play a little game. Are you down?
I'm down. Let's do it.
Yes, let me pull up my handy dandy timer here because we're going to play a game called First Class Favorites. Okay. And it's really easy. I'm going to say, what is your favorite ... and you fill in the ... You fill in the blank. Easy peasy, right?
Yeah.
But here's the catch. You got to answer in 10 seconds or less. So you don't have time to think and criticize and say, oh, will they judge me for this answer? Nope. First thing pops in your head, go with it.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Because if you miss the buzzer, then you got to give a consequence for everyone. Ooh. Not just for yourself, but for all of the First Class family that's tuned in right now has to adhere to your consequence that you set.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Mm-hmm. I won't let anyone down.
So we'll start with something easy. What is your favorite cereal? Go.
It's just brown flakes. I'm very boring. Only because you can do so much, right? It's about what you add into the brown flakes, not just the brown flakes itself, right? So chopped banana, some blueberries, a bit of honey. Before you know, it's a completely different meal. But you need the brown flakes at the bottom.
Do you guys have Raisin Bran in the UK?
Yeah. We do have Raisin Bran. So, I'm always adding raisins to my brown flakes. Why pay the markup? Buy your own raisins. Add them in, man. Stop being lazy. Yeah, do your DIY. That way you can call it classic Raisin Bran or Faris Special Raisin Bran. And you can charge extra.
Oh, there you go.
Always be hustling.
I like the Raisin Bran Crunch that has the granola and the little kind of like streusel crunch in it. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. What is your favorite snack? Go.
I'd probably lie and say an apple. It's invariably like a chocolate biscuit. Come on, let's not beat around the bush.
A chocolate biscuit. Got it. Now, is that similar to a chocolate cookie?
Yeah, that's similar to a chocolate cookie, except the difference here is we have more like a layer of pure chocolate on top of a biscuit base. It's digestive. We do appreciate a cookie here in the UK, but we have greater biscuit sophistication.
I don't doubt you. Yeah. Really noted. Okay. Let's see, because I'm trying to be mindful of like the cultural differences across the seas.
Right. The UK is we get more of your references than you get of ours because we get all your TV over here. We get all your sort of newspapers. I've been to the States quite a few times, so I'll handle it. You throw it out.
Yes. So I haven't been to London yet. It is on my to-do list because I want to travel to all the places. But kudos to Netflix because they are bringing more culturally diverse shows. I've been watching a lot of things out of Africa, like Nigerian and Kenyan and South African shows as well. I think they're still lacking on their BBC shows a little bit. I have found one spy show that I like that's out of London. So yeah, that's how, I'm privy to just some of them. What is your favorite book, title, and author? Go.
It's probably from a kid, one I read really young, Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy.
Far from the meddling crowd. Say it again.
Far from the Madding Crowd.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story of a sheep farmer in 18th century England and how he falls in love with two different people. And
ooh, drama.
Thomas Hardy, yeah.
What is your favorite song, artist, and title? Go.
Do you know what? It's a Shakira song from about 20 years ago that I learned all the dance moves for a school play. So it's in Spanish.
What's the song?
Ciega sorda muda, which means blind and deaf.
Okay, so we're going to count that one or not count it. Technically, you got Shakira out, but you never said the song till after the buzzer. We'll let that one slide. Exactly which song you're talking about. Okay, got it. What is your favorite place to travel specifically? Go.
Jerusalem.
Ooh, why Jerusalem?
Well, as I said previously, my family are Palestinian, so I've been going back to Palestine since I was a kid. And Jerusalem is such an amazing place. It's like a merging of 3 religions, 3 cultures. You've got a little bit of everything. So if you want, modern day sophistication, you've got it, but you've got centuries of history and old little cobbled streets. The best thing I love going is you go shopping, right? Set aside all day because you're going to be there haggling, drinking coffee with little merchants over the smallest item, because that's part of the fun. That's what they look forward to. That's what I enjoy. So yeah, Jerusalem is a great place to cover a whole range of things.
Ooh, nice. What's your favorite relaxing activity? Like, what do you like to do specifically to relax and just find peace and happiness?
I think it's spend time with friends. Really, I'm a born networker, so my dream day is filling on a work front 8 hours of talking to people, and then in the evening I just repeat it, but with friends. Right? So I never actually get any actual work done. That's why I'm a night owl, and I stay up till like 2 a.m. actually writing stuff and creating stuff. But yeah, that's because I just enjoy meeting people, talking to people so much.
Got it. Okay, I think that you'll be able to do this next one. What is your favorite joke? Go.
Because there might be kids listening. What's brown and sticky, Lindsey?
Honey?
No, a stick.
Oh.
Other variations of the joke are, what's pink and fluffy?
Pink and fluffy. And my first thought is cotton candy, but I feel like that's not it.
Pink fluff. So what's blue and fluffy, Lindsey?
Blue fluff.
No, pink fluff holding its breath. Come on, pay attention.
Oh, you got me.
All day with terrible jokes, but
you got me. Well, thank you for playing our game, First Class Favorites, because you are now amongst the illustrious authors that contribute to our First Class Favorite Things list. Yes, First Class family. If you are new to the show, make sure that you click over there and subscribe to our private Patreon community, because that's where you will find our First Class Favorite Things list, where we have our reading list, our song playlist, our favorite places to travel, and because we prioritize self-care on this show, our favorite relaxing activities, and as Faris added, is spending time with friends can really do you some good, okay? So if you want access to that list and so much more, like bonus videos, bonus resources, and all those good things, make sure you subscribe to our private Patreon community. Meanwhile, yes, right now.
Do you want to be surrounded by other high-achieving women who are working on their goals just like you? Are you looking for your circle that's passionate about their own growth yet still wants to see you shine? Do you desire to be supported through collaborations and connections instead of competition? Then Cowork and Chill is your place to be. Cowork and Chill is a hybrid of virtual co-working and virtual networking. It's a community of women who are striving to build living legacies. This is the space to create meaningful relationships with other equally yoked women where you're being poured into just as much as you pour out. So if you're looking for your crew for supportive accountability, then sign up today at coworkandchill.com. That's COWORKANDCHILL, coworkandchill.com.
Let's get back into this conversation. Again, if you're new to the show, then I need you to know that First Class Life is actually an acronym that stands for all of the different ways, the characteristics and skills that you want to embody into your lifestyle to be able to create a first-class life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. And so if you want to find out what those characteristics are, you can do one of two things. You can either go and listen to the very first episode of the First Class Life Show, where I explain each of the factors in detail, or you can head to firstclasslifeshop.com and buy the book, First Class Life, 10 Key Factors for Creating a Life Full of Purpose, Fulfillment, and Happiness. With that said, let's ask the very handsome Faris, which key factor of first class life do you resonate with the most?
I think it's, there's a lot of the factors that resonate with me, but I'm going to go.
I know.
Yeah, I know. It's tough. I'm going to go with confidence.
And why did you pick confidence?
Well, linked to, if you've been listening to this podcast since the beginning, I talked about moving from being an awkward teenager into hopefully less awkward adult. And a lot of that, the secret recipe was just finding the right level of confidence. And it's all the things we talked about, being comfortable with who you are by celebrating the things that you have, not the things that you don't have. You get to that just the right level of confidence. As my dad used to tell me, don't get too confident, son, then you're cocky. It's confidence is something you have to work on all the time just to be in the middle, right? And it's linked to mindset. It's linked to how you think about yourself. And so much flows if you can get just the right level of confidence into your life.
So I must ask you, what suggestions or tips do you have that can help us find that right level of confidence within ourselves?
Well, so, building on what we said earlier, find the right people around you to remind you, A, how great you are, but equally, if you're too confident, to bring you down and remind you that you're not as great as you think you are, right? Everyone needs that person in their life as well. But you need the people who build you up and the people who keep your feet on the ground. That's a good way, right? And get things out of your head, right? The number one thing to do, too many of us spend too much time in our own heads. And everything is better when you share it with people. Problems, but even stories, they get better. Even ideas, other people build on them for you. And they go, oh, that would be better if you had an extra button here, or you do this a little bit different, right? I remember the first time I wrote a speech, which was for my brother's wedding. I thought it was hilarious. Then I told it to my sister, and she went, half of that is terrible, right? So just saying things out loud adds value instantly, even if you don't think it does. You think you've got it nailed on. So that's my top tip.
Yeah, that's so good because in my speaker training, it's always suggested you record yourself giving speeches and things like that, because sometimes the things that you think are a hit, you listen back to the recording and the crowd, it fell flat. And then other things that you might not be paying so much attention to, the crowd really loves. So really, saying things out loud and getting that feedback. So thank you. Now I would like to ask you, how do you impact the world as a leader today?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Lindsey. Incidentally, people, if you can hear a high-pitched beeping behind me, that is what a dishwasher finishing sounds like in the UK. So how do I impact people nowadays? I said before, I run my own little consulting firm, which is all about strategy and emotional intelligence. That dishwasher really wants to get emptied. That's actually my doorbell now. This is like who knows what's happening. Hopefully they'll go away, Lindsey. But maybe we should pause and let me go and see who's at my door. Should we
go right ahead? Go see.
They've gone, Lindsey. I don't know who it was.
It was like a ghost. Ding Dong Ditch. Did you guys ever play that in London called Ding Dong Ditch?
No.
It's where you would, as a kid, well, hopefully adults don't do this, but as a kid, you would run up, ring somebody's doorbell or knock on the door and then run away before they answered. It was a mischievous game.
Yes. Yes, we had such games here. But we didn't call it Ding Dong Ditch. It just be ring and run, basically. But yeah, anyway, I don't still do that if anyone's watching.
Right.
Right. Should we pick up? How do I impact? So how do I impact the world? I'm glad you asked, Lindsey, about 10 minutes ago. How do I impact the world? As I referenced before, I run a small consulting firm, which is all about strategy and emotional intelligence. So gone are the days where we come up with solutions. That's what I used to do as a strategy consultant. Now I work with companies to get people to buy into the same idea. All right. If you think about how people work in business, too often people don't agree with each other. People don't they don't believe what another person is saying, but they're too afraid to say it. There isn't a safe environment to say I disagree, or to have wholehearted conversations. So what me and my team do is we facilitate strategy discussions around that. We build strategies by bringing the team along. So it makes it much more powerful, much more likely. And this kind of work is really fun. It's really impactful, but it can involve really lots of random stuff. One day we are, getting people to have honest conversations. The next day we're doing team bonding sessions. The next day we're doing wargaming for companies. So it's a lot of reframing and changing how they look at things, which we've talked about a lot on this podcast, to unlock value in the team.
Nice. And how can everyone find you on these internet streets?
Well, on these dangerous internet streets, you want to find a superhero like me, and you can find such a person at one of three places. Number one is my company website. My company is called Shiageto. And Shiageto, there you go, is the Japanese word for a sharpening stone, because we sharpen other companies. So if you go to www.shiageto.com, and that's SHIAGETO, you'll find me, and you'll find lots of great content there. Otherwise, look me up on LinkedIn, Faris Aranki. There's only one of us, I think. I spend a lot of time there. Similarly, on Instagram, I'm Faris Aranki on Instagram, and I also hang out there a fair bit. So hit me up, carry on the conversation. Let's talk about first class life and other such interesting things. We can play Ding Dong Ditch together.
Yes. And listen, okay. Cultural differences. Back to that for a second, because when you first said the name, I heard Shiageto. That's why I started laughing. I was like, Shiageto. I thought you were about to run into a joke. And then, so I'm glad you showed the cup and actually said, spelled it out. Was it IA or AI?
IA.
IAGETO. Shiageto, not sheer space ghetto.
But maybe if we rebrand in the US, Shiageto might be. It's probably. I haven't looked it up, but maybe.
Listen, it's a lot of things that are sheer ghetto already in the U.S. unintentionally or intentionally. That's a whole nother conversation. But geez Louise. So Faris, do you have any parting words for us on how we can go out there and create our first class life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness? What are those final words?
Yeah, the final words are, you probably are already living a first class life and you don't realize it. But if you're not, just go out there, be a little more curious, ask a few more questions, listen a little more than you normally do, and your life will be all the richer for it.
Mm-hmm. And with that, let's give it up for the lovely Faris Aranki. Yes. And thank you, First Class family, for tuning in this past hour to another episode of the First Class Life Show. Remember, subscribe, comment, share, do all the things. Post your insights and your ahas on social media. Don't forget to tag us, myself and Faris, and the First Class Life Show. And make sure that you are staying tuned in for a new episode as we bring back phenomenal guests every single week. Meanwhile, keep going out there, maximizing your impact as a leader while creating your first class life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness, because you deserve it. Bye.
Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. But please be sure to subscribe to the First Class Life Show And don't forget to rate, leave a review, and join our private community so that we can continue to provide you with great personal development conversations to help you maximize your impact while creating a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. You deserve it.